Hey everyone, thanks again for joining. My name is Simran and I'm with Canopy. Canopy is a co-working space that's based in San Francisco. I'll put our website in the chat box so you can check it out in a little bit. So today we've got Will Sarni of the Foundry, who's going to be discussing, with his case studies, the trends and solutions about what's going on in the water world right now. We'll open this up to Q&A at the end, so people can just go ahead and digitally raise their hand or chat in the chat box, and I will pass the questions on to him. All right, Will, all you.
Okay, great. All right, let me share my screen. I assume you can see it.
Yep, we can see it. You just have to do it so it's the full screen.
Yeah, let's give it a minute. It's slow to go to full screen. There we go. Okay. Well, hi everyone. Will Sarni, CEO of Water Foundry, and I'm going to talk about the future of water, which is a little misleading because the future of water is here. So I'll give you a glimpse in terms of what's going on with respect to innovation in the world of water and some of the bigger trends and some case studies. So a little bit about my background. That's me in the middle, a very long time ago. And I started my career as a hydrogeologist, so working on water supply projects. This is one of the first projects I worked on in Puerto Rico, finding water for a pharmaceutical company. And have been in the water sector really because I find it to be fascinating. It's got an environmental piece to it and a very strong social piece. So, doing work that provides people with access to safe drinking water is work that I'm committed to. And it's changed over the last several decades, and I'll get into what it looks like now. I like to talk about water as a wicked problem, and a wicked problem actually has a definition, which I will get into. And if you understand the attributes of a wicked problem, you have a decent shot at least solving part of it. And one of the most important definitions of a wicked problem is that it involves many stakeholders. So what that means is that it's not going to be the public sector alone that will solve water scarcity or poor water quality. It won't be the industrial sector. It won't be a non-governmental organization. It won't be an individual. It'll be everybody. And that's a very powerful notion. Wicked problems. Difficult to clearly define. I won't go through all of these attributes. There's actually more than these. But the two that are really worth spending a little bit of time on is that wicked problems never really sit within one organization. So lack of access to safe drinking water is not just a public sector issue and challenge. It impacts the industrial sector, businesses at large, in addition to being a public sector issue. And the last one is probably the most profound. Wicked problems are characterized by really public policy failure. And unfortunately, there's no shortage of examples, which includes everything from Flint, Michigan to day zero that we've seen throughout the world. So, how do you engage the public sector to solve some of these big water-related challenges is really the key question. This is a simple graphic from a good friend of mine, Tom Higley, who's referenced in the upper right. He has a program that's based here in Denver, and it's 10-10-10, which is 10 wicked problems, 10 entrepreneurs for 10 days. And he brings together 10 successful entrepreneurs to focus on a category of wicked problem. So if it's water, it might be a wicked problem of real-time water quality monitoring, affordability, access very broadly, for 10 days. And they basically go through a sprint in getting up to speed on what is the wicked problem, that they might be interested in, and developing solutions, which in many cases means starting a business by these entrepreneurs. And in some cases, they actually raise capital quickly over the 10-day period. And what I love about this simple graph is that it illustrates the role of various stakeholder groups in contributing to solving wicked problems and bringing their unique capabilities to bear. So entrepreneurs are very focused on developing a solution. They are quick, they have great speed, they can pivot quickly. In contrast, the public sector has great scale, but they don't move very quickly. And then everyone in between, which includes multinationals and NGOs, non-governmental organizations, have a role to play sitting in the middle. And depending on the company, they can be more like entrepreneurs or more like the public sector. And the same goes for NGOs. But the trick here is, how do you engage all of these stakeholders to focus in on a particular problem and work collectively to solve that problem or suite of problems? And there's actually a lot of movement in the water sector right now to bring together very diverse stakeholders to solve wicked water problems. So why water? This is a glimpse into essentially the status quo and some projections for 2050. So by 2050, under business as usual conditions, we will need 60% more water for agriculture, 80% more for power production, and that's thermoelectric power production. So, you know, gas, coal, nukes, and 55% more water for domestic use, for manufacturing, other purposes. And again, this assumes business as usual with projection of population growth, which is really the driver for increased demand for water. Water's finite, so it creates a lot of stress on a resource that is undervalued and overused, overallocated. So the goal here, through innovation in technology and partnerships and business models, is to ensure that we don't continue on this business as usual path. So this is a report that comes out by the World Economic Forum every January, just before their annual meeting in Davos, Switzerland. And this year's report, like most years prior, identified the water crisis, the global water crisis, as one of the biggest issues that would have a social impact in the next 10 years. This is not something that's going to happen in the next 10 years. It's something that's here and now and will get worse over time. So anyway, I'll give you a little bit of a feel for what's going on in the world of scarcity and poor water quality, but keep in mind that things are not getting better fast enough. Water-related risks impact economic development. So the way to think about water risk or water issues very broadly is that they have an economic development dimension to it, a business operation and growth issue. They have a social impact, and they have a ecosystem or environmental impact. And water's complicated. It has a number of those attributes, plus it has a spiritual dimension to it, which makes solving water issues very challenging. But this World Bank report looked at water supply and demand and the impact of climate change on it. And they identified a number of regions that would have a decline in their GDP by as much as 6% by 2050, mostly related to ag, health issues, and incomes. And again, you know, this is something that's happening here and now, but is projected to become more severe over time. The Colorado River Basin, I'm here in Denver, Colorado, so the Colorado River is important for the Denver, Front Range, Colorado economy, in addition to cities such as Phoenix, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, and smaller cities in between. And this was a study that was done a number of years ago, but really illustrates the economic importance of the Colorado River to the states that use this water as a resource. And the Colorado River is over-allocated, so there are more water rights than water availability, and it's projected to be more of a problem due to climate change. And there are a number of reports that have come out over the past month or so, really looking at the impact of climate change on the Colorado River Basin and how that impacts the region, which also includes Mexico. Water as a business risk issue. So I'm taking the liberty here of quoting myself. And this quote came from a piece of work I did with a friend of mine who works for WWF. And we were looking at business growth projections a number of years ago. And companies were projecting 100% growth over the next 10 or 20 years. And if you looked at where they were projecting their growth, it was in emerging markets. And if you looked at where water scarcity and stress was most prevalent, it was in emerging markets. So this really drove quite a bit of thinking and writing and speaking on the need for corporations to look at their business strategy and the role of water in fueling that business growth strategy. And the positive outcome is that, it gets companies to think more strategically about how they manage their own water use, but also how they contribute to solving water-related problems beyond just as a corporate social responsibility issue. The business risk, I'll get into how companies think about water as a business risk. Unfortunately, these are a few responses that I've run into and a colleague of mine have run into, as we talk about water in the private sector. And, more often than not, it's, water's cheap, doesn't cost very much. Why should I care? We don't use very much. Our impacts are small. Well, it really doesn't matter that it's cheap. It has a value beyond the full cost or price of water. It also doesn't matter if your impacts are small, because other stakeholders care how you manage water, and they have the ability to basically withdraw your social license to operate and ability to grow your business. So these are 4 lousy reasons. The new normal. So the bad news is, again, public policy failure. The energy, water, food nexus that I highlighted when I looked at projections of water use, water needs for ag and energy. Infrastructure in the US, we have aging, underfunded infrastructure. I think we get a D+ rating from a couple of the professional associations that are focused on the water sector. And it's infrastructure that's been around for a century plus. Places like Boston still have wooden pipes that leak, which is not a good thing. The good news, and I'm an optimist, so I tend to focus on the right side of the slide, which is there's some pretty big trends that are driving solutions to water scarcity and poor water quality, including digital water, which I'll get into in a fair amount of detail. Something called one water or a circular economy, so the ability to use water over and over again, as opposed to using it once and discharging it. Innovation very broadly, so you're getting entrepreneurs look at the water sector for opportunities to start a business, grow a business. Nexus solutions, so again, energy, water, food creates stress, but it also drives innovation. And then a move towards off-grid and localized systems. So off-grid water supply solutions, and localized water treatment systems. And I'll provide some examples of what that looks like. When companies think about water and how it relates to their business, they think about it in 3 dimensions, which is physical risk, regulatory risk, and reputational risk. And physical risk is really a matter of understanding how much water you need, of whatever quality you need, when and where you need it. So if I am, again, going to expand into Africa, is there enough water of the right quality when and where I need it? Regulatory risks have to do with compliance requirements. So what are the requirements around water quality that I would have to discharge? Or how much water do I have to run my business? And in places like California, during the extended drought, there were limits on how much water various sectors would get. And then reputational risks. So anyone with a social media account can comment on how you are using water and whether they believe it is being used in a responsible manner. And companies think about it across their entire value chain, which is their upstream supply chain, which means most of the cases it's ag. Their operations, their manufacturing, whether it's a brewery or an apparel manufacturing operations or semiconductor manufacturing operations. And then in some cases, product use. So if you are a consumer packaged goods company and you make shampoo or soap, your customers, consumers need water, and that drives innovation. So companies like Unilever think about and invest in low water shampoo, or dry shampoo, or low water detergent or soap. And when companies think about it holistically this way, they can quantify business value at risk, current and projected, and use that as a basis for making investments in technology innovation and partnerships that goes beyond really what they're paying for water, and gets them to a higher level of valuing water. Now, the good news, the business opportunity, this is exciting in terms of some of the big trends and some of the solutions that we're seeing. So this is now an iconic photo, not just in the US, but globally. The Flint water plant, which was a real tragedy in terms of impacting human health. It was a public policy issue that, again, impacted a economically disadvantaged community. As I mentioned before, infrastructure in the US is aging and underfunded. It is typically centralized, which is capital intensive and O&M intensive in terms of operation maintenance. And what does that look like? So, this is really generally the current model, which is, we get water from surface water or groundwater or both. We transport it, we treat it, we use it, and we get a lot of loss along the way. In the water sector, we talk about non-revenue water, so leakage from plumbing. And where we need to go is to diversify sources of water. So think about capturing rainwater, air moisture capture, which I will get into, multiple sources of surface water and groundwater, and alternative sources such as desalination. And thinking about wastewater treatment plants as factories. So using wastewater treatment sludge for energy production, nutrient capture, and reusing water over and over again. So treating wastewater for potable use or non-potable use. Places like Singapore and Israel, they use wastewater over and over again for agricultural uses, non-potable and even potable use. And digital technologies that enable us to move from the left side of the slide to the right side and really be much more efficient and effective in how we're managing water resources.
I have a quick question when it comes to getting lake water. So I'm in California, and one of my good friends is actually building a homestead in California. But the state of California does not allow you to collect rainwater.
Yes. So what a great example of public policy failure. So yeah, I mean, this gets into Western water law, and living in Colorado up until I want to say 2 or 3 years ago, you could not collect water in rain barrels.
Mhm.
But the city and county of Denver changed the law. So now you can collect water. So it's a matter of, engaging in public policy change.
Mhm.
So we can collect rainwater, reuse water over and over again. And actually the city of San Francisco, the water and wastewater utility is very progressive in terms of really driving that 21st century thinking and models. So that, there are good examples of where public policy is changing.
Mhm. Yeah,
Better.
because she's up in Northern California, so yeah, not allowed to collect rainwater and not allowed to collect gray water,
Right.
which like the two things you should
Right.
be able to do. And,
It's, to me, this gets to the issue of, public policy was put in place when there was either more real or perceived supply exceeding demand. So, you don't have to be really, efficient, effective in managing water if supply exceeds demand.
mhm.
And, that's not the case right now. So rethinking local, state, and even federal regulations is becoming just more and more important.
Yeah, thank you all.
You're welcome. So the trends that I would say I'm most excited about, and I tend to focus on in my business, is digital, localize, and personalize. And I'll define what I mean by each of these. So the digital transformation. Digital technologies have transformed every aspect of our lives to varying degrees. Whether it's education, can you imagine education now without digital tools? Healthcare is adopting digital technologies more and more, moving from analog and, hard copies to tablets. Transportation, the ability to use an app to access transportation, whether it's a car or a dockless scooter, whatever it may be. And even in the home, we've seen that with the energy sector and energy technologies. We're also starting to see it now with water. And there is this really significant digital transformation of the water sector that was in place pre-pandemic, and the pandemic has been a trend accelerator now. So if you're up for additional reading, these two really frame, I think, pretty nicely what's going on with the digital transformation of the water sector. The World Economic Forum has been doing quite a bit of work over the past several years on the fourth industrial revolution, which is really applying digital technologies for both the public and private sectors. It's a good read, quick read. That'll give you a feel for what's going on, some of the challenges, but more importantly, the opportunities. International Water Association on the right partnered with a global water technology company called Xylem, looking at the utility sector and surveyed companies, utilities, and then also did interviews. And it was really enlightening in terms of how utility companies are adopting digital solutions. And I'll get into what they look like. Digital value creation, in a lot of ways, this is incredibly intuitive. But it's about the ability to capture data, collect the data, transmit that data, aggregate it, analyze the data, push it out to people that need it, whether it's a smartphone or a dashboard on your computer, and take action. Either react to an incident, like a pipeline leak, whether it's outside or in your home, a pipe leak, but also be proactive and identify where a leak might happen based on predictive analytics. So using artificial intelligence tools. And this thinking, this framework is being applied in both the utility sector agriculture, and industrial applications. And as much as we tend to focus on the technology side, really the biggest challenge and the biggest opportunity is focusing on people. So, me as a consumer of water, or utility worker, or someone working at a brewery, giving them the ability and the tools to understand how to use digital tools and adopt those and scale them to create value in their work and for the companies, the entities that they work with. That's a big challenge, but a big opportunity. The digital water value chain. So, as you think about the public and private sector and how they are looking at digital technologies, really kind of the way to look at this is, what's going on in the watershed, which is, we get water from aquifers or surface water or reservoirs, ponds. And then, we move that water to an industrial application like a brewery or a utility that delivers water to your home. And then, we have relationships with consumers and customers, in particular with utilities. And also part of this is the supply chain, which, you would put up in the watershed side of the equation here. And thinking about use cases. So if you are an industrial industrial enterprise or a utility, you want to know, ideally, real-time water quality, quantity at the watershed. You want to understand what's going on in your supply chain. In your operations, you want to deploy artificial intelligence so you can manage assets before they fail. In some instances, you might use virtual reality or augmented reality with your workforce to give them the ability to leverage information on a real-time basis. Things like water quality monitoring are incredibly critical. And then on the consumer side, that's really interesting. It's basically connecting utilities to customers on a real-time basis. So how much water you're using at your home, in your condo, apartment, how you compare it to your neighbors, how do you drive conservation, and then also using that information to feed back to the utility so they understand supply-demand requirements so they can operate in a more sustainable and resilient manner. And these are just some of the companies that are operating in the various categories. Cloud to Street, they use satellite technology for flood prediction. Jibe does real-time water quality monitoring using satellites. Utilis is a satellite data acquisition analytics company that can identify leaks in water utility infrastructure. PlutoShift is an AI technology company working in the industrial sector. And then eWaterPay has smart water kiosks in emerging economies that tie to a smartphone, and Drop Counter is a smart water application that will give you data and information on how much water you're using in your home. Moving on to another big trend, localized treatment technologies. So, I think most of us, when we think about wastewater treatment plants, we think about big, smelly, ugly facilities that we don't want to live near. Well, there's a real move towards either localized scale, which is a city block, a neighborhood, or even in a large office building like Salesforce in San Francisco, and a move towards more modular systems. So Organica is a water treatment technology company that uses natural treatment systems, so biological treatment plants to treat water. And they're aesthetically pleasing and they have no odor. And Aquise is a modular water treatment technology company out of Israel. New sources of water, air moisture capture technologies, both on-grid and off-grid. So on-grid means that you plug it into a power grid and it operates really like a an air conditioner. It condenses water from the air. And you can collect it And then on the left, you've got an off-grid system that uses advanced material technology to collect air moisture capture and deliver that to your home or a series of homes at a lower production volume. But again, you don't have to plug it in anywhere. So some really interesting technologies that are providing new sources of water in areas that are challenged to find that water in surface water and groundwater. And then some really cool innovation in terms of how we hydrate. So you've got companies like Flow Water and InStream that take tap water and treat the water. They also have the InStream water has the ability to carbonate the water and really personalize how you use water and hydrate without going to bottled water and generating waste. And then companies like Blue Water that have small scale treatment systems that can take contaminated water or even salty brackish water and turn it into drinking water for use. And then sort of extending this notion of personalized hydration, you can get into things that are used in the home and outside the home. So SodaStream was an Israeli startup company that was acquired by PepsiCo. And they give you the ability to have still water, sparkling water, and flavored water. Bevy does something similar with home systems or systems that are in offices or elsewhere. Again, carbonated, still, and flavored. Roshan does the same thing. They're a startup company that uses pods to personalize how you want your water without having to go to bottled water. So bottled water companies deliver personalized hydration, but they do it in a bottle. And this basically takes tap water, treats the water, and enhances that water with the flexibility to meet whatever choices you. Smart home applications, I talked about this briefly in terms of digital moving into homes. Spout is real-time lead testing at the tap and they were started to address Flint. So giving consumers the ability to know the quality of the water that they were drinking. Turn Water is a smart water faucet company. So it'll notify you when your water filter needs to be replaced. Again, so really just leveraging your smartphone with connected devices, not unlike what you're seeing with energy applications in your home. Again, consumer connectivity, the two on the left, WaterSmart and Drop Counter, again, I talked a little bit about in terms of connecting to your smartphone and telling you how much water you're using to drive reduced demand. Rachio and HydroPoint are in the irrigation business. So Rachio has smart water irrigation systems for your home. HydroPoint is more of a commercial scale. But again, it's really driving water efficiency and water conservation through digital technologies. And a little bit about innovation platforms. AB InBev, largest beer company in the world. They have something called the 100+ Sustainability Accelerator. They're in their second year. And they identify startups that solve particular problems like water, agriculture challenges, packaging, climate change. Companies apply and they get funding from ABI and they get mentoring and they get pilot projects. So, this is an excellent example of a multinational that certainly does quite a bit to manage their own water use, but also is very much engaged in driving innovation in technology companies and also innovative business models. And then TNC has partnered with Techstars. TNC Techstars is in their, I want to say technically second year, based here in Denver. And they do something similar to what AB InBev does, in that they get companies that apply for their accelerator, and they have a 3-month program where they help them refine their business model, value proposition, bring in mentors, and generally collaborate with them to help scale their businesses to solve particular issues rather, sorry. Last year, there were 10 companies. They had 5 that were tackling water-related and food-related issues. Again, Jibe came out of that program and is now in the ABI program. And Microterra is focused on aquaculture. Mammoth Trading focused on water data acquisition and analytics. Second Nature, again, water company focused on water compliance issues, and Aqua, also based in California, is focused on water risk, primarily in the ag sector. So you think about innovation, there's a lot of activity with water technology hubs and accelerators, and quite a bit of interest by multinationals. So the last one is Imagine H2O. They're based in the Bay Area, been around for 10 plus years. They've had an absolutely amazing impact in the world of water in terms of identifying companies, working closely with those companies that are solving particular water-related issues, and introducing them to investors, and also partners that are interested in piloting their technologies. For the past couple of years, they've run the Urban Water Challenge and really demonstrated the power of prize competitions in mobilizing entrepreneurs and investors to solve very particular water scarcity and water quality challenges, you know, in ag, urban settings, home use, things like that. And then finally, one of my favorite quotes from William Gibson, science fiction author, and really talks about the future. And you know, the future is not something that is uniform, and it's not something that is just out there. It's really here and now. So when you think about innovation and solving wicked water problems, there are a lot of examples of public and private sector entities that have really adopted innovative technologies and business models to solve water. So that is it, and that's me, or this is me. If you have any questions outside of the next 15 minutes, feel free to email me, and I'll do my best to get back, and happy to provide additional information on any of the topics I touched on.
Thanks. Well, I love how you term it wicked water.
Yeah, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's evil unless you don't have access to it, and then it's certainly evil.
Yeah. No, it's just like, I mean, because like water isn't sexy, but it's needed.
Yeah, it's tough to do anything without it. Yeah, hydration's good.
Hydration is the key to everything. How did you get into this? Because you've also been for a very, very long time.
Yeah, boy, how did I get into it? You know,
I'm sure of you.
Well, I originally thought I wanted to go into oceanography. And when I was in graduate school, I got a job with a groundwater consulting firm, and then absolutely fell in love with this notion of, you know, helping people find water. Like, you know, for me, it was noble, and it was technically challenging. So I got hooked early on, and that's been it.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any questions? You can type it in the chat box, or if you want, here we go. All right, how about stormwater? Can you read it?
Yeah, I can. So, Doug, thanks for being on this. Thanks for a good question. Yeah, you're right. Stormwater is forgotten. You know, water's forgotten in general, but stormwater in particular. Yeah, there's some really interesting things going on with stormwater prediction, infrastructure, urban design. You know, I was on a call earlier today, and we were talking about the Chinese designing porous cities that would allow for the infiltration of water back into aquifers. But yeah, as we've paved over cities, we get a lot of rainwater, and that overloads water treatment systems, and then we get polluted water going into streams and other surface water bodies and even groundwater. Doug, did that answer your question? Or okay, good.
Yeah.
You're
Does anyone else have any other questions?
Hi.
Hi, Deborah. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Sorry, I joined a little bit late. Is there any way I'd have access to these slides or this presentation?
So we're actually, so this has been recorded. It's going to go into our YouTube channel. So,
Awesome.
yes, and also our Facebook. So you can find us on YouTube. Hold on. Under Canopy Events. Hold on. I just put that in the chat box. YouTube Canopy Events. It's also live right now on our Facebook page.
Oh, awesome.
Canopy SF.
Really good. Thank you.
Of course. Do you have any other questions since you've joined us, or?
Well, I kind of missed the first bit, but I was just wondering, like, is his company just doing all research about innovative technologies in water, or?
Sure. So Deborah, we are a consulting firm. So
yeah.
we work for US and non-US multinationals on their water strategy. So helping them understand how they use water, why it's important, how to do better.
Mm-hmm.
And we work for very recognizable brands. And then, sort of roughly the other half half of the work we do is with water technology startups. So
right.
helping them, we don't do the research, but we would work with them on their business strategy, quantifying their value proposition, connecting them to customers that might be interested.
It's mainly US based?
No.
Okay.
A lot of the work we do is international.
Okay.
Fortunately, it's a lot more interesting that way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've had clients in Latin America, Europe, Japan. Yeah, it's interesting in terms of what's going on, and the ability to identify solutions that you can bring to the table in a different part of the world. Is interesting, fun, and value added.
Great. Thank you so much.
And I used to travel, so yeah, it was cool.
Nice.
Can anyone ask questions now?
Well, if you could raise your hand, it'll be easy, and I'll unmute you. But go ahead, Stuart, ask your question. Everybody else, raise your hand, and I'll unmute you so it doesn't get too messy. But go ahead,
Well,
Stuart.
I don't want to be inappropriate and jump ahead of anyone. If anyone else is there before me.
No one else has, so go ahead.
Okay.
It's on you.
Well, I want to say, first of all, thank you to you for putting this together. Grateful for you to bring this. And I love the image of the hands in water. That's beautiful.
Hey, this is Stuart, right? So yes. I'll send that. Stuart, I'm going to send it to you.
Great. Please do. I'm going to put my screen on so you can see me now. And Will and I are kindred
co-conspirators.
We're kindred water drops. And I just want to say this about Will. Will is really unique in this industry because he brings a sense of discipline and expertise, but he also brings a sense of collaboration, willingness, and openness that not a lot of people in this industry have, which is what's needed going forward. And the number one thing that this industry really needs is youth. We need to have young people in the water industry. And we need to have women and women leaders in this industry because it is old white men that are controlling water. and so Will and I have had talks about this. So I guess I want to throw the question to you, Will, but actually I really want to throw the question to this group is, I assume a lot of people on this call are young, whatever that number is, whether it's 20 or 35. and many of them are women. And I'm interested to hear Will's thoughts, but then anyone else to chime in about what vision and role do you see you being able to play in the future of water and what is coming, because water is about to be innovated, and I'll even say disrupted. It's the next industry that's going to have enormous change and new leadership that's going to come from the youth. So I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, I'll throw out my point of view, and then I'll also ask Karin Leidlinger for her point of view. Look, you have to be thoughtful about this. You have to invest time and energy in engaging with young professionals or, young outsiders, and really embrace diversity. You can go to the usual suspects all day long, but for me, that's a very limited value proposition, because they're going to bring the same thinking to the table. And I am passionate about bringing in people that know nothing about water, and bringing in people that, don't look like me, or even you, Stuart. And, and honestly, I was on the scientific program committee for Stockholm Water Week for a number of years. And they had a very strong commitment to building their program. And if you built a program with old white guys, it didn't fly. It was, go be creative, reach out, network, and bring in people that have a very different point of view and a very different take on what's needed. So, I think it's up to us to ensure that that happens. Just be vigilant, I would say. And I'm interested in what everybody else has to say.
Thank
I
you,
don't think we do a good job of it, Stuart, quite candidly.
Well, as I say to many of these people, we may be your mentors and your elders, but you are our mentors, because we need to learn from you. You are the future, and you need to show us, and you need to lead us into the future, because we can't see it with our eyes. We need to see it through your eyes, your hearts, and your souls.
Thank you for that, Stuart. I'll give you a little background on what my thoughts are on it. So I actually grew up in water. Bill actually knows a little bit about this. My dad's a civil engineer in Kenya, and he builds out water systems and sanitation. So all of our road trips, if we never went to Safari or never went to the coast, we have to stop to one of the sites, in one of the villages, and always have to check out what's happening. And for me, it's when I think of water, I'm not in the industry, obviously, but for me, it was bringing community together. Because wherever there's water, there's a village, there's life, there's things happening around it. And I've taken that part and applied it to the work I do, building communities out here. I have co-working spaces. So that's, what is given back to me. And like I said, a lot of people, for a lot of people, it's not a sexy thing to do, but there's so much that comes out of it. So it's a great question as to how do you get people to, participate and understand our life source?
Yeah, no water, no anything.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
This is Amanda Chosik joining in the call. Just wanted to say an excellent presentation, William. I'm with a team based out in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And we're a provider of water and wastewater treatment technologies, and just an excellent presentation. And stemming on discussions with the Q&A just now, I think another point to make is different perspectives, different ways of thinking, and to always have the end in mind, and water being a big part of that. So just wanted to say excellent presentation.
Well, thanks.
Thank you.
Feel free to follow up.
Yeah, for sure. And just the array of technologies that were shared, it was very well done.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. There's a question from Mark. Okay, what are your thoughts about the value of water? For example, do you see the definition is changing as companies, governments are looking beyond financial capital, but into natural, human, and social capital?
Yeah, so, we're making progress in terms of changing the dialogue from the price and full cost of water to what is the value of water, and not just the business value of water. Like I need a gallon to make beer. It's, well, my community in which I operate in needs water, and that creates business value, but it also creates societal value. So expanding the definition of value to get us away from really just focused on how cheap water is, almost regardless of where you are. So, I get companies to think about the brand value of water. So, as a multinational, if you are viewed as part of the solution to water, what's that value to your brand? Will people buy your product? Will investors invest in you? So really thinking about it as broadly as possible is really where we need to go. Not an easy journey, but an important one.
That actually made me think of two of the examples in your presentation of Organica and Stream. I love what Organica is doing. Like I said, my dad was sanitation. It's like big vats of water, and it's very pretty. Right? And then making this into like a gorgeous product. It's about branding. It's like,
yes. We have an opportunity to think differently about it. Yeah, we do.
Yeah, and it's also with the soda stream. So let's say like we're co-working space for Canopy. One of our co-founders is an industrial designer called Eve Bahar. Eve Bahar designed the new soda stream.
Well.
So Eve Bahar designed, so it's like, it's branding, like making what's a good image. Like this is a great product and it's water, and there's so many different industries that it affects.
Yes.
And are coming together to make an amazing product.
Yeah, it's there's a big opportunity right now in terms of how we think about hydration, again, very broadly, and also who we're engaging in this conversation. It's not just the consumer packaged goods company, food and beverage companies. It's, technology companies like, Microsoft and Intel and Google, coming to the table, which is exciting.
Yeah. Well, we have a minute left. Do you want to answer one more question, or do you want to wrap up? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Karin, you still on? You asked about Unilever. So AB InBev I highlighted, and I highlighted them because of what they do with their 100+ Accelerator. Also what they do with respect to water stewardship. I like how they think and they're driving innovation, and part of that. L'Oreal is really interesting in terms of what they're doing with respect to driving innovation on efficiency and water reuse. So I encourage you to take a look at what they're doing. And then also Microsoft, I think, is interesting, not just from, the perspective of reducing their water use, but some of the products and services they're delivering to the marketplace. So a little bit of a smattering of who's interesting out there and doing things that are different.
Great, thank you. Well, for those that are asking about the PowerPoint, well, do you want to share your PowerPoint, or you just want it to be on the video?
I'm happy to share it. If you, just ensure there's attribution, that's all. Because it's still a very small sector, I will know, and Stuart will know, so yeah.
It is very close.
Very close. Yeah, happy to share.
Okay, all right, well, what I can do is I can just email it out, or actually, if you can email me directly, whoever wants it, because I have it, well, so you don't have to deal with it. You can email me directly and I will send it out to you. This has also been recorded, so it's going to be on our YouTube and Facebook channels, Canopy SF and Canopy Events on YouTube. And I liked what Doug has to say. No water, no beer.
Yeah, I don't drink beer, but I drink martinis, so no water, no vodka.
No water, no vodka.
There you go.
So,
All right.
thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And
Thanks.
have a good rest of the evening.
Great. All right. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye.